People, we're back in Portsmouth, and this week we've got questions for Malcolm Little, the founder of Portsmouth City of Sanctuary.
The week of my 18th birthday, I went to Sandhurst. No one else had been there from Bay House before, so I did a couple of really good tours with Gurkhas in my time in the army. That was when I had my first experience of refugees, the Vietnamese boat people in Hong Kong. There was no Portsmouth City of Sanctuary. Well, you know me, it had to be done. The boats coming over the channel. You know, let's give people safe routes. Let's understand why parents believe it's safer for their kids to be on the water than on land. And we get them working and paying taxes, learning English as soon as possible. We integrate people healthily and properly. There will always be a proportion of people in any cohort or community who do not step up to the mark. But many of them, the vast majority I would say, are wonderful people with a lot to offer.
So, all right. So Malcolm, we're here in St Luke's Church.
St Luke's Church, Southsea.
Okay.
Gresham Street, city centre.
Nice. Well,
Beautiful building with a fantastic history.
Yeah, no, it really is. Beautiful in there. But, all right, well, thank you for being a guest, and thanks for actually giving us your time. And, yeah, I'm really excited for this one. So, tradition we've got on this show is, instead of me giving you an introduction, I like to just give it straight over to you. So, who is Malcolm Little?
Well, it depends which Malcolm Little you're talking about, because if you Google the name, you'll get about 10 pages of Malcolm X. Because Malcolm X's name at birth was Malcolm Little, and his brother was Robert, and my middle name's Robert. So even if you get rid of the Malcolm bit, you still get Malcolm X. Yeah, many years ago, I had an American working for me who told me that I had a really cool name. I did know because I was aware of Malcolm X's autobiography, which I'd read, I think, as a teenager.
Nice.
So you know, I'm not exactly a fan of Malcolm X, but there are certain things about him that I admire. So yeah, I'm not Malcolm X, you'll be glad to know. I'm Malcolm Little from Leon Solent, Gosport and Portsmouth.
Nice.
And a different person altogether.
Okay. All right, happy days. So, all right, so yeah, take me back then. So so you say Leon Solent.
Yeah, so I was born in Portsmouth, but brought up in Gosport and Leon Solent. That's where I went to school. My parents were not from here originally. They were from Bridport and Dorset.
Okay.
But both teachers, so they came here for work. And yeah, that's where I was brought up.
Okay.
And it was pretty, I mean, Leon Solent in the 70s, 60s and 70s was okay in the summer, but it was pretty monochrome and boring, so I couldn't wait to get away, if I'm honest.
Really, yes.
Yeah,
that was always the plan.
It's a little bit more cosmopolitan now. But yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. So as soon as I got the opportunity, I left.
Okay. Where did you leave to?
Well, I joined the army. So
okay.
So at Bay House School, I was encouraged to stay and do my A-levels, but I'm quite a young person in the academic year, so my birthday's right at the end of August. So literally the week of my 18th birthday, I went to Sandhurst. No one else had been there from Bay House before, so I was sort of blazing a trail, if you like. And yeah, I joined the army, and it was really, really important for me to learn quickly and to grow up quickly, and I had to. It was all about duty, hard work, physical fitness, leadership, lots of military stuff too. We learned a lot about politics and strategy and stuff like that. Very interesting. Always thought about the world from the opponent's point of view, which was a good discipline. And the motto at Sandhurst was serve to lead. So leadership was all about serving, not about taking or assuming the privileges of rank or authority. So whenever people are in charge of anything, and if you have leadership qualities, it is your duty to take charge and lead by example. Whenever you've got that God-given responsibility, you have to take it in the right way. And all my life, partly because my parents were like it as well. I've always tried to take the lead and lead by example. So that's a foundational principle for me. And serving to lead is also, of course, inherently Christian, Judeo-Christian in its ethical standpoint. And certainly in the last 20 or so years, everything and anything I do is prayer-led and Christian. And I can't take, therefore, any credit, because the limited gifts I've been given, I've had to work out what they are and apply them as best I can. And that's absolutely fundamental to me.
Okay.
And I'm delighted that everything that has happened to me in the last 20 or so years has, generally speaking, gone pretty well. So I'm pleased about that. But I don't take any credit for it, genuinely.
Wow. Selfless. All right. So, a few things there.
Yeah.
So what drew you to the military?
Well, wanting to get away. I mean, the options were limited, I remember, in those days. You could a lot of friends joined the civil service maybe and went into the dockyard. Others might have gone into teaching. Very few, generally speaking, went to university. So it wasn't... There was nothing like the range of choices that you get now. IT didn't exist for a start. Engineering opportunities were few and far between, to be honest. There wasn't a lot going on, and for me, the military seemed like a really good choice. I had an uncle who had been a sergeant major in the Royal Marines, and he was quite a big influence on me. Okay. My mum wanted me to go and work in a bank, and that was just awful as an option, so that was never going to happen. So no, I was always into sport, always very fit, and I joined the Army Cadet Force at school.
Nice.
And I spent so many weekends as a teenager out and about with the Army, doing visits here, there and everywhere, that it was sort of second nature to me. I was also a really keen squash player. I used to play with the Royal Navy team in Lyon-Solent at the squash club there, and I found them so arrogant that the Navy was not really going to happen, and it wasn't original enough for me. Too many people locally joined the Navy.
Okay.
And I wasn't keen on sailing and all that, so it was the Army, only for me to then realise that they were just as arrogant as the Navy had ever been. So I that was probably not the right reason, but it suited me.
Okay.
And I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay. That's interesting. You went to the Army Cadets. I went to the Air Cadets when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, Air Cadets. I did look at the Air Cadets,
Really?
and had there been a local one, you never know, it could have been completely different.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you joined the Army,
Yeah.
but you went to Sandhurst, so you
Yeah.
went straight into becoming an officer.
Yes.
Why didn't you just go down the normal... I know you said there that you was always drawn to leading, but why didn't you just go down the normal...
What, joining the Army as a junior soldier? Yeah. Well, no, I did look at that. So when I was 15, I went to a selection centre in Aldershot. There was a quite nice sort of mansion house or something just outside Aldershot. I don't know where it is actually, but I went there for the weekend as intending to look at getting an apprenticeship, and we had to do loads of physical tests, psychometric tests, and everything else. And my dad, being a teacher, sort of always liked to prepare me for things, and he'd got out a load of psychometric tests and word association tests and all that sort of stuff. So I was pretty well clued up on it. The physical stuff, no problem, easy. So anyway, at the end of the weekend, I was called into the major's office or something, and he showed me a brochure of Sandhurst. It was a beautiful white horse marching up the steps, and he said, I've looked at your results from the weekend. You don't want to be joining the Army at 16 as a young apprentice, which is what I was intending to do. He said, you can if you really want to, but I'd recommend that you wait to see whether you pass your O-levels. If you pass them, stay at school, take a couple of A-levels, and then see whether or not you can get to Sandhurst. He said, I'll write a nice letter on your behalf, and we'll get you introduced to a few good people. And see where you go. So I did have a guaranteed vacancy, they called it, to join the Royal Engineers as a survey technician. Okay. And I would have gone to Chepstow had I not passed my O-levels, but I did. Yeah. Because again, my dad made sure that I did. because I wasn't allowed to go out. I had to study. And for every single O level that I took, I also did what was called a CSE. So I did double the exams, double everything. Yeah. So there you go. So my background is a key part of why I am like I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. And Royal Engineers, did you become an officer in the Royal Engineers?
No, I joined what was then the Royal Corps Transport.
Okay.
So it then became logistics. But I was very fortunate because I was expecting to be sent to university by the army, but for all sorts of reasons it didn't happen. And sort of as an apology, everything was quite relational in those days. You knew the people in the posting branch, people knew people. And almost as an apology, I was sent to Hong Kong to join what was then called the Gurkha Transport Regiment. So I did a couple of really good tours with Gurkhas in my time in the army, and that allowed me to do a lot of travelling.
Okay.
So that was when I first saw that was when I had my first experience of refugees, the Vietnamese boat people in Hong Kong.
And what was that first experience like?
Well, I don't know how much you know about Vietnam, but when the communists took over, many people in the south got out fast, and there were very high casualty rates across the water, but a lot ended up in Hong Kong, and they had to be supported and helped through that transition. And I got to see that really from the sidelines, but it opened my eyes to the reality of a big, wider world.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the Gurkhas themselves came from a tough environment, and I was very blessed in going to Nepal and spending a lot of time out in the hills. And there were many projects I had to check up on and lots of things I had to do. And it was tough work, and you begin to see then that it doesn't take money to be happy. You just need to have a good family, a good culture, and a good solid approach to life. And that's not easy. I will never forget getting to the top of a particular ridge that was very exposed, very cold, not a good place to live. And they were the happiest people I've ever met in my life.
Really?
Yeah. And I did ask myself why that was. I did look at it. I started to study happiness, try and work out what it was that made people happy. And it's family, it's faith, it's integrity. These are the things that really matter, not materialism.
Interesting. So that was, how many years ago did you go?
Well, it's my early 20s, and I'm 60, almost 62 now, so yeah, you can do the maths.
Fair enough. So that's when you first had your exposure to refugees.
Yes.
You also touched in your introduction where you was on about your faith.
Oh yeah.
How that's
yeah.
been with you throughout, or you said the last 20 years.
So I've just met a woman here in St Luke's who has a similar background to me. So she was brought up as an Anglican. She was christened as a baby, then she was confirmed as a teenager, and then she sort of fell away, which often happens. Same for me. Until your journey takes you down a difficult route, and then you reappraise everything. I don't need to go into my personal details, but it's sufficiently profound to make me challenge all of my preconceptions. And when you do that, you either take faith seriously or you dismiss it. What you don't do as a sensible person is ignore it and sit on the fence. You have to go one way or the other, in my opinion. Because to ignore anything like that is to ignore something as fundamental as money or health. You can't just ignore it. You have to address it. Intellectually, look at the evidence, piece it together. And if you think it's a load of rubbish, fine. Fly the flag telling people it's rubbish. But you better be able to prove it, because you're stripping people of hope. Or you take the view that I did, that Jesus was the most influential man that ever lived in history, and he may have had something important to say. Fine, but did he then say it because it was important, or did he say it because he was what he claimed to be, the Son of God? And if he was the Son of God, that changes the whole ballpark, and you need to wise up and get real. You can't ignore it. You're not allowed to ignore it. You can't sleep until you address it. It's that profound. So yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, in my late 30s, and then it changed everything.
Really?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So where was that? I mean, you went on this journey of discovery, and where did it take you first? So did you join, or did you
So
leave?
yeah. So what happens is that I got baptized, and I started to look at how I could support my local church, because you need to grow, you need to learn. You don't want to be spouting rubbish to people. You need to get yourself aligned to what the Bible says, and really understand the difference between sort of allegorical poetry and imagery, and what actually the core message is, that core loving message that goes right through the Bible. Not going down little cul-de-sacs here and there, getting into arguments with neighbours over sideline issues. No, knowing the absolute truth, and how it all joins up. And then once you realise that, you begin to read everything in a new light, and then you build your knowledge pretty quickly, and then you can start turning that into practical action. It's not just about being faithful; it's about acting too. You don't get saved because you're a good guy. You're saved in order to be a good guy according to God's will. It's a completely different way of looking at life to say Islam or atheism or any other belief system, all of which I would say are valid to the people that believe in them. Even though I personally think they're wrong, I would never criticize them for that. Everybody has their own journey, and they come to their own conclusions according to their own free will. So that led me to start thinking about how I applied my faith to the real world.
Okay. And how did you apply it to the real world?
Well, it took some years. I mean, by then I was out of the army and I was working in industry, so my second career. So I tried to be as ethical and as responsible as I could be in industry, and I believe I did a pretty good job of that. I worked in IT services for some large multinational companies, and I was pretty successful, I would say, relative to many, but not as financially enriched as a number of others, but that's another story. But I did okay. I did well enough by the time I hit 50 to get out of it, and I then went into the charitable sector. So I did 12, 13 years in industry, then 19 in the army, 12 or 13 in industry, and then I went into the charitable sector at 50, and I was the regional manager for the Red Cross, with a particular responsibility for refugees, asylum seekers and vulnerable migrants, with an office here in Portsmouth, but we covered Hampshire, Surrey, and later on a bit of West Sussex. So that was my job. And I took a pay cut of, probably 5/6, something in that region. Yeah. So I went from earning a lot to earning very little.
Wow.
That's fine.
Yeah.
it's fine. I didn't realise the challenges I was taking on. But there you go. That also is another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
so that professionally is what I did.
Right.
Lots of other little things in the church world. So, you have to run courses for people. You have to be involved in church activity to keep the church running. My wife and I used to run a lot of what we called sort of home groups or life groups at home, cell groups, things like that. So a lot of that going on over the years too. And quite busy. Life just had a different perspective, much more local.
Really?
Yeah. And I suppose out of that, as City of Sanctuary came along. Yeah, the same. It was an inevitability, if that makes sense.
I get that.
So no genius, no originality, purely a logical step, and all done in collaboration, all done with volunteers, all done with like-minded people, like Shamila and Golam Chowdhury, good Muslim, not all Christian. So the Christians prayer-led, but non-Christians very much, and other humanitarians doing it for their own very, very important reasons. All faiths and none. Okay. Total collaboration from day one. And now we've got over 270 supporting organisations. including some outfit called Pound Media. But you know what I mean? One man, from a one-man band right through to a large business. We've got the lot, local, regional and national.
Nice.
These aren't people that give us any money. Christchurch Central is the only organisation that gives Portsmouth City of Sanctuary any money monthly. Another organisation does in order for us to deliver a particular project, but we don't have anybody regularly, month in, month out, giving us money. So we are purely dependent on small grants, large grants, whatever we can get.
Really?
A little bit here and there from the council, but not regular payments.
Okay.
So I think to have gone from nothing to what we've got now with over 40 active volunteers, and these are really high quality people and utter diversity, to go from what we were doing to what we're now achieving with probably well over 2,000 clients caseworked, plus their families and all those other people impacted a year is amazing. Wow. But it is absolutely not down to any one individual. You can't add ego to this equation, I tell you that. I feel quite strongly about that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll touch on a few things there. So you left the army, you worked in industry, you came out, you did that. So how did City of Sanctuary, how did it start out? So you said how it started out there, and you say now you're working with 2,000 clients, but I guess you didn't start from working with just straight up 2,000 clients.
No, so City of Sanctuary was a little bit of a vehicle for us in many ways, because it is a national movement. Okay. So City of Sanctuary exists all over the UK. I mean, there are something like 140 towns, cities and boroughs of Sanctuary around the UK, and I think a couple in Ireland as well. So that's the first point. But there's almost no infrastructure around that. A very, very small number of sort of City of Sanctuary staff nationally. I think most of them would work from home. So there's no City of Sanctuary empire or office complex anywhere. And they're non-religious, they're non-political, and they are purely humanitarian. And it's about a culture of welcome for asylum seekers, essentially. And every City of Sanctuary, let's just say, does it in its own way. As long as you adhere to the humanitarian principles of welcoming people, you can pretty much run your charity as you like. So we are a charitable incorporated organisation, a CIO, but that's by choice. Others do it differently. Others do relatively very little. Some, like Sheffield, that have been going since 2007, they were the first. They have a big building and lots of staff, and they do a ton of stuff. So we're more aligned to that thinking, and we're ambitious, God willing, to end up like that perhaps in 10, 20 years. Having said that, if there was no need for us, we would happily dissolve and go away. There's no God-given right to exist. If we're not needed, we won't be here. But we saw the City of Sanctuary movement as a good vehicle. That was the point. We weren't looking to create a whole new paraphernalia of charitable business. No. We were simply going to support an existing movement because there was no Portsmouth City of Sanctuary. I'd already been involved with Southampton, Bournemouth, the University of Winchester was a University of Sanctuary. There are plenty of others, Oxford, Chichester, you name it. But Portsmouth, interestingly, didn't have it. So that was the first point. Why not? Well, no reason other than the fact that no one's done it. Well, you know me, it had to be done with others, so not me alone. And there was a guy called Stephen Press who was running the third age centre in Southampton, who was a friend of mine, sadly passed away. And I had a chat with him about how we might set it up in Portsmouth, what he was doing in Southampton. And a long story, but we had, through the Red Cross, an idea of distributing welcome boxes to new asylum seekers, and it was being done successfully in Plymouth and Newcastle. So I knew how those two projects worked, so it was easy to learn a few lessons. And because people were sometimes a bit suspicious, I think, of the Red Cross. Big logo, big name, big money, relative to small charities. We got Southampton City of Sanctuary to lead it. A little bit of political playing here, and that's part of the manipulation sometimes in life. But we got them to kick off what was a Red Cross idea that I took forward. Not my idea, but I think genius comes from taking forward sometimes other people's ideas and joining those dots. And then out of an original idea in one area, you end up with something bigger and better somewhere else. Not your idea. All you've done is join a few dots. But I don't like it when people jump on board and say they created that. They didn't. What they did was take other people's ideas. And I think if I have one skill, it's that. It's that I can spot an idea and apply it where it's not happening elsewhere. And that's what we did with the welcome boxes through Southampton City of Sanctuary. And because of that, it was very easy to just have a meeting in All Saints Church when all the Red Cross team turned up, Friends Without Borders, blah, 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 loads of other people in the city. And we had a first meeting. And then we agreed that we would launch the next June. That was 2019. And we had a launch in the Guildhall, because the Guildhall were big followers. Yeah. Vernon Jackson and other councillors we had about 50 supporters at that time. The council on board, Journeys Festival International, all that. And because the Red Cross were not allowed to sponsor it, they saw it as a conflict of interest. We got Journeys Festival to put in all the paperwork. So you see what I mean? We were all working together to leverage various skills and contacts. But if anybody could take credit, I think Stephen Press, to be honest, and me knowing Stephen and trusting him and vice versa. So the church have been key. Okay. Mosques, Gurdwara, they've all been supporters over the years. So that's 5 years ago now, isn't it?
Wow, that's 5 years ago.
That's just 5 years ago, yeah.
Wow, so lots happened in the 5 years.
Yeah, and then COVID hit. So COVID's key.
How did that change everything?
Well, it changed everything because when Portsmouth City of Sanctuary got going, we talked about dot joining. It was really to join dots. We were looking to have schools of sanctuary, libraries of sanctuary, blah, 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 all that going on, where people would just be welcoming. It was all to do with creating a welcoming culture. And that was fine. And we had a couple of little projects, not much money, no big deal. I was still managing the Red Cross team, etc., etc. Along came COVID, and the Red Cross, which is not an agile organisation, and is quite risk averse, took the view that they shouldn't be providing physical drop-in environments anymore. Okay. Yet the need was increasing, not decreasing. So myself and my wife came to this church here and spoke to the vicar, Annie, and said, could we start up a drop-in here on a Monday? And that was never going to work with the Red Cross. So another story I won't go into. I left, and most of the team left as well. And the expertise from the Red Cross team transferred seamlessly to Portsmouth City of Sanctuary. So we went from being a sort of advocating, informational dot joiner, small, unofficial charity with no status, to being a charitably incorporated organisation that was then delivering operationally overnight. So seamlessly the team shifted. And it's another lesson for people. Logos don't matter, it's people that matter. Really. You can't just rely on a logo to back you up. You have to be genuinely real. The integrity has to be through the people, not a logo. And that's a shame, because logos attract a lot of money that should and could be going into local charities that are actually delivering operationally. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? I wish that was out there and understood better.
I understand.
Yeah.
So we touched on there about people and the importance of having people, and you touched earlier, you briefly touched on ego. So the link between there is taking me on to, what is your relationship between hiring the right people and not letting your ego get in the way of their work.
Yeah, the difference good men pay for being indifferent to public service is what allows evil men to take control. I think Plato said something like that. It's also a Christian ethic. You have to get involved, because if you don't, even though you're a good guy, you've just allowed the bad guys to take over and exploit the vulnerable. And I believe that the underpinning strategy for Portsmouth City of Sanctuary is threefold. It's firstly to welcome. So my view would be, as a Christian, we're welcoming people that could end up. Basically, you're welcoming people who could be angels, but you don't know it. That's the bottom line. You have to welcome everybody, because you don't know who you're not welcoming otherwise. I mean, it sits on my soul. The next thing we do is orientate. So we signpost people to the right people, the right agencies, because that's incredibly important. And then for those that don't have a voice, we advocate. So a voice for the voiceless, that's again another Christian principle, very clearly picked up in Proverbs. So we speak up for those that can't speak up for themselves, but we educate them, hopefully, to be able to look after themselves. So we don't believe in supporting dependency. It's really, really, really key. And it's massively a team effort. You talked about our staff. Well, until very recently, we had no staff. We were all volunteers. And our volunteers and trustees are amazing. Could talk a lot about them. And I don't see much ego in there, actually. It's just not our way. We've now got a couple of staff, and they're vitally important, but they fit the culture. You won't see any loud mouths in there. And they help to just keep things going, because the demand is increasing year on year. We're just getting more and more demand, particularly complex casework and safeguarding issues. These are really an issue, and especially the mental health of men in particular is bad. They're very frustrated and angry, but a lot of women, particularly those without status, irregular, no recourse to public funds and so on, those women are very vulnerable if they've got children. And there's a lot of abuse. So we run a referral only drop in on a Wednesday for those people. So we do a lot of stuff across the city that is unsung, that people don't even realise. So that's why I'm talking today, actually, to help get the word out. We need more trustees. We need more money. We need really talented volunteers all the time, because we've got a turnover of about 10% a year. You know, we have to keep maintaining and sustaining what we do in partnership with others. So that's really why I'm doing this.
Fair enough.
So sense. Thank you for asking.
That's fair enough. I mean, you touched there on mental health of men.
Yeah.
I just want to dive in there. So, is that of refugee men, or
yes,
is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm generalising here. There are plenty of women asylum seekers with mental health problems too, but it is a trend for me seeing mostly single men languishing in Portsmouth, waiting for the Home Office to call them in for an interview. They don't know when they're going to get interviewed. They don't know what's going to happen to them when they report to Fareham Police Station, which, by the way, is mental. Why? No, that's the wrong term, which is not mental. It's completely wrong and illogical. For people to be leaving Portsmouth to go to Fareham to report every other Tuesday to the police station, that's crazy. So when you go, you don't know. It's very undignified. You don't know whether you're going to be detained or not, which means you've left your personal effects back at your property, the accommodation you've been dispersed to in Portsmouth. You know, your phone's going to be taken away and confiscated. You can't get a hold of your friends or loved ones. It's very, very stressful. And you're standing in a long queue outside the police station opposite Tesco's in Fareham. So we have been lobbying quite hard for that to change. Okay. And I really hope it will. So leader of the council, the chief executive, police, they're all engaged in this conversation, because I will not accept that it makes sense.
Yeah, that's big.
So yes, men, I think, are particularly vulnerable to mental health challenges if they are in that situation. Not to decry from women too, but a trend for women is exploitation. Women tend to be exploited more than men. I think I read a study, don't quote me exactly, but there is a study that showed that women with no recourse to public funds are 5 times more likely than Indigenous British women to be abused, whether it's sexually or physically or whatever. And that's not well known. I did speak to Penny Mordaunt about that before she lost her seat, and she was pretty shocked by some of our research. And I'm actually speaking to Amanda Martin this afternoon, the new MP for Portsmouth North. We do want to do more in the north of the city, so we will be applying to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Community Fund and others to get an outreach caseworker, just 1 day a week, that can help us join the dots outside of the city centre area. So, we do want to get the word out and to bring vulnerable people into our services and projects.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I didn't know that. I didn't know those facts. Didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a real issue. I mean, the numbers are not high. We have to be honest here. Not, again, relative to homelessness or drug abuse and other problems. Issues around no recourse to public fund women are not big. So maybe about 50 women in this city have irregular status. It's not huge. We've got a good film called Unseen, which is on our website. It sort of shines a light on this. So we're working with the port and others to address modern slavery issues coming through the port. So there's lots of stuff that we could and should be doing, but I stress numbers are not high. But for those caught up in it, it's a real issue.
Yeah. Wow.
And Shamila's really helped with this as well. We always had an ambition, again, because we've seen it happen in Liverpool and elsewhere, to address the sex trade in this city, because it's a disgusting issue, and many migrant women are caught up in it. So we have a very good project with Haven, and Harbour Church, and others, the Med-Eye Trust, and we are addressing some of those less well-known issues in the city.
Is the sex trade big in Portsmouth?
Well, it's not. It's mostly online.
Okay.
It's mostly online, and there are a number of small clubs and venues that we have people visiting and speaking to the women.
Wow.
So again, I don't want to overstress it, but it's a nasty issue that I believe we should address. We should at least understand what's going on.
Fair enough.
And bring the police in too, so that they understand what's going on. And instead of picking up a woman who is vulnerable and in trouble and looking immediately at her immigration enforcement status, look at the circumstances and the context and the perpetrators of that abuse. Don't look at the woman's status and address that first. Look at the perpetrators and sort them out. Yeah. I've got the same view about the boats coming over the channel. Let's give people safe routes. Let's understand why parents believe it's safer for their kids to be on the water than on land. And let's sort out those traffickers.
Yeah.
I'm ex-military. I would love to see them taken out. I don't mind being quoted. I'd love to see them identified and taken out, because they're scum.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Oh, and also the backlog. The backlog should be sorted out too. So I do feel that the backlog of cases is inhumane, and to be blaming asylum seekers for the backlog is not right. And policies like Rwanda, which thankfully is now gone.
Yeah.
My issue with Rwanda was not generally understood. My issue with it was that it strips people of their hope. I don't believe in doing things that strip people of their hope. So I was always anti-Rwanda as soon as this idea came up. I'm not keen on the hotels either. I think the hotels are not good environments to be holding people. Very expensive, very inefficient. Sort the backlog out. And then we don't need hotels.
How could the backlog be seen to, in your opinion? I mean...
Well, it's like any project. You remember the Olympics in London? What a fantastic project. And didn't it just showcase the UK at its best? Come on, GB, what a brilliant Olympic. That was a project. We sat down, got the right people around the table, and we worked out how to deliver something with a beginning, middle, and end. And that's what the Olympics was. For goodness sake, we won 2 world wars, and we can't sort out a backlog. I refuse to believe that we can't tackle a backlog. So we need to be training up more caseworkers, taking people out of other ministries with lower priorities. If migration is such a big deal for this country, and it is demonstrably, why are we not tackling this clear and present danger represented by backlog?
Yeah.
Let's just train people up to manage the cases. Let's deal with them quickly. And if people cannot prove that they are here as asylum seekers, fleeing persecution and warfare, then we very quickly manage them. We then manage any subsequent fresh claims and evidence that come through, and if they prove that they are genuine, then we give them status. And we get them working and paying taxes, learning English as soon as possible. We integrate people healthily and properly. That's one of the reasons I do this, because we have a problem and good people need to be sorting it out. So that's why we put such a big emphasis on English and our casework designed to get them on their feet quickly. Because we do get one or two who turn up expecting us to do everything for them. No. Get on with it. So you've been here a few months and your kids are still not in school. Why? So you've been here 2 years and you don't speak English. Why? Yeah. They have to show responsibility, all migrants. They're in this country and they must be contributing, they must be learning, and they must be proper, integrated members of society so that we have a really, really healthy, diverse community locally and society nationally. You don't end up with any of these silly riots and then counter riots. I don't go for any of it, I'm afraid. You won't see me campaigning.
So
I campaign by getting on with it on the ground, not waving a flag.
Nice. So what is your view then about, because you touched there on, if they don't send their kids to school and they've been here for 2 years, or they don't know English and they've been here, what's your view?
Well, I'm quite firm. I'm quite firm, and we do this via casework. So when people come to the welcome part of our strategy, we have welcome boxes, £10 box, and any donations gratefully received. 100% of that £10 goes to a box, a shoe box or something similar, with some choice items in it, some toiletries, maybe some chocolates, some tea bags, a bit of coffee, maybe some sanitary products, whatever it might be. We've got a lovely small team that manage that project, and then we give all new asylum seekers a box, and inside that box is a beautiful card designed by Portsmouth Creates, and inside the welcome card, which welcomes them to the city, which is a lovely thing to do, is information, particularly asking them to come to the hub. When they come to the hub, they'll come through the reception, they'll be triaged, so we get to know how serious their issue might be, and then they see caseworkers and they do English. And during the casework, there'll be needs assessed, and out will come a series of priorities. Could be they've got to see a GP, get their kids into school, learn English. Could be that they've got some medical problems, whatever it might be. They haven't got a solicitor, etc., etc. And that is managed if, after a quite extended period, there's no effort on all sides. Then we have to be clearer in explaining to people their own responsibility to this country. Not everybody's comfortable with that, but that's the reality. We have to do that in our own family, don't we? Families, communities, they all have to manage. There will always be a proportion of people in any cohort or community. Take the army, take industry, take politics, politicians, policemen, policewomen. There will always be a proportion who do not step up to the mark. It is nothing to do with refugees and asylum seekers alone. But I'm not claiming, sitting here today, saying that all migrants are wonderful. They're not. Any more than human beings are in any other walk of life. But many of them, the vast majority, I would say, are wonderful people with a lot to offer. Can you imagine the guts and the talent to take a journey from Afghanistan to Dover? How many of us could do it?
It's massive.
Yeah, really. So that transferable skill, I would argue, is needed by the UK, particularly now. So what we need to do is really emphasise the integration. effort needed more. Unfortunately, that's not City of Sanctuary's main effort, because we're here to welcome and orientate. We can't do it all. I think that's a council stroke government responsibility to get these people into work quickly. So that's one of the reasons why we are talking to the council, because the council are embarking on a journey to become a council of sanctuary, which is really exciting. And one of the things we're jointly looking to do is help people who get their refugee status getting to work quickly and productively without being exploited. So there's a lot to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to do.
You know, housing's another big issue. There are big issues that we cannot alone tackle. We need to do it together. Portsmouth's a perfectly sized city to join the dots and get things moving together. It is actually. We're very fortunate in that sense. It's got great potential. Again, that's one of the reasons why we're part of the City Vision. Don't know whether you know much about City Vision. It's Imagine Portsmouth 2040. So the last chief executive set it up, and we were there as a founding member. We're one of the 12 organisations, Portsmouth City of Sanctuary. It is to realise a vision for an attractive city that people want to live in, invest in, and support by 2040. So I think it's 2025 is the anniversary of Portsmouth becoming a city. Wow. So that's part of the journey towards the 2040 city vision.
Okay.
Some people call it Imagine Portsmouth, but we're part of that. So to be a healthy city, you also need to be a humanitarian, compassionate city. So that's the side that we're pushing.
Nice.
Because if you go to New Orleans or San Francisco or whatever other parts of the world, you've got the city centre that's very attractive and full of tourists. You go a couple of blocks either side and it's really unsafe. So we want Portsmouth to be brilliant from top to bottom, left to right. Yeah, not a two-tier city. It's got to be solid with great people, and then families will want to live here. Businesses will want to invest, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Don't just get pockets of brilliance. It's all joined up. And if somebody's unsafe, guess what? I might not be able to sort it, but I know an organisation that will. And immediately the right organisation is brought in to help. Don't waste time telling your story 5-6 times to people that don't understand.
No, fair enough.
So that's the sort of idea.
No, I get that. That's the vision.
But it's all to do with collaborating, isn't it?
It is.
And getting involved in public affairs, not ignoring them, hoping that someone else will do it. Everything from our Action Asylum project, where we're with local volunteers picking up litter, shore cleaning, tree planting, you name it, men's sheds, allotments. It's all to do with having a really healthy environment with healthy people, a diverse community working together for the future of the city. I don't know any other way for the UK to go. Yeah. We can't go back to the Leon Solent of the 1970s when it was all monochrome. We can't go back to that. There wasn't an Indian restaurant in Leon Solent, I think, until the early 80s. It was a couple of fish and chips, and a boring high street. We can't go back to that. I'm sorry, but we're not going to pull up the drawbridge now. Not as an international maritime nation. No, it ain't going to happen. So we have to make it work. And from my experience, France, Italy, Germany, other equivalent nations in Europe are nothing like as well integrated as we are. I actually think we should be proud of our multicultural, diverse nature. I think we should be proud of it relative to other European countries that have not done it as well as ours. It's not to say that there aren't issues. We've talked about those.
Yeah.
But I think they're addressable if we join up together.
Okay. How do you think we could join up together even though we've left?
Well, it takes leadership, doesn't it? It takes leadership from the top. But all community leaders of all faiths, local politicians, councillors, we get lots of councillors visit, and politicians, it needs something like the city vision. Yeah. But that city vision then needs to be purposeful, action orientated. It needs to really, really happen. I actually think Portsmouth's in a good place. We've got, as far as I can tell, really good leaders here. So the next stage might be to bring them together more regularly and invest in that. There was a very good City Vision meeting a couple of months ago that I attended. It was in the terminal building of the international port.
Okay.
So I think that was the first time it happened under the City Vision banner. It's all to do with Team Portsmouth, and we're part of that. I think that is the way to go. But I'd hate to feel that all that marketing and effort disappeared just because a couple of key people disappear.
Yeah.
Because they will disappear. Everything needs to survive contact, not only with the enemy, but with a change of personnel. So I would love to see. So I'm really glad that the current chief executive has taken forward the initiative of the previous chief executive. So let's see that. That's real leadership to me. Not having to take credit for it, but see the wisdom and take it forward. That's real leadership. Being able to hand over things is real leadership too, because I won't remain as chair of trustees of City of Sanctuary forever. I'll be handing it over. He's somebody else with a bit more energy and a different viewpoint.
That's interesting.
You understand? So yeah, you have to always be looking for who it is that's going to take over, and do it quite quickly so that you can then take what you've learned and go do something else.
Yeah.
Don't run away. Still be supportive and still be involved, but don't insist on taking all the decisions or leading it. No.
I like that. I mean, what I take from all of it, a lot of what you say is you don't like taking the credit because it's all about the people.
Yes. No, I mean, it's easy for me to say that. I really, because people could be cynical about that. Oh, really? I can only say it, and people have to either believe me or not. But no, it's not. It's serving to lead. That really is meaningful for me. You have to be able to roll your sleeves up. If the kitchen's short, then you go and do the washing up. If somebody needs help, go do it yourself.
So I wouldn't say that stereotype of being a boss, of you point out where to go and what to do. I don't take you as that type of guy. No, not at all.
No. I don't remember many times in the army. People think they understand the military. They don't unless they've done it. The number of times the orders were barked, I could count on one hand in 19 years. Hardly ever.
Really?
Don't need to, because people are sufficiently well trained to understand it's a crisis and get on with it. Don't need to be told to pull their socks up. It's not common to shout and scream and tell people they must do something. I was watching Succession the other night, which was a great TV program. It was getting better, but there was a problem when somebody heard a gunshot in the office block, and the guy in charge was such a total idiot that he just panicked and ran through the crowd of people that were disorientated in his own department, saying, out of the way, executives coming through. So he was only interested in his own personal safety. He was running for the secure room, but it just struck me as actually typical. So people that have no leadership training, no management training, think they can start up an organization. They always call themselves CEO and founder. Oh, yeah, really? And there's not a lot going on there, actually, when you strip away the facade. And that is a little dangerous. And many large charities as well, many organizations have people in senior management, middle management, who have not actually been tested.
Really?
They've not really, because their behaviours demonstrate the exact opposite. They don't take any risks. They don't take any blame. They don't stand up to be counted. They're not genuinely leading. There's a difference between managing badly and leading well.
Interesting. What do you think it takes to be a good leader or a good manager then? I know, obviously...
Well, I think to me, leadership is about taking people that wouldn't normally want to do this particular thing in a direction that helps them develop the confidence and means to deliver it. So you're encouraging people, motivating people to do things they wouldn't naturally want to do on their own without that encouragement. And giving them a vision, giving them a purpose, giving them an aim that together with others they feel empowered to take up and deliver. You're getting people to do stuff they wouldn't want to naturally do, and not just because they're getting paid. Like I say, we're volunteer led, so none of our people get paid, yet they put thousands of man hours in. I've got I've got a little bit of support actually from somebody who my dad taught maths, so it shows you how far back that goes. So friends of friends of friends, and she worked out, according to some national sort of measure, that Portsmouth City of Sanctuary delivers about £90,000 worth of benefit through its volunteers a year to Portsmouth. Wow. I think that's a conservative estimate, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of support provided by churches, by voluntary organisations, other organisations, that is not actually ever measured by that society. So the more we can join up, and the more that we collaborate and get things done as a community in Portsmouth, the amount of unpaid value to society is immense.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one criticism I would have of the council. How many council officers are being paid a really good salary for not actually doing enough to support the voluntary sector in the city, who are doing a lot for nothing? It's opportunity cost, isn't it? So you pay somebody £40,000 to do not a lot. In my view, as a biased individual here, we could do a huge amount of £40,000 a year.
I agree, and without being biased myself, I've seen some projects that just were funded, it didn't need to be funded, and that money could have been allocated to better causes.
Definitely. Yeah. So when we're funded, we always do a good report. We always put quite a lot of effort into making sure that we're proving that we're doing it, and that 100% of that money goes to clients, one way or the other, by services delivered or whatever. It's very important.
Wow. No, I get that. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay, so taking us back a bit, we didn't actually go into too much, but we spoke about a lot of the work that the sanctuary does is unseen.
Yes.
How do you make sure that it's seen?
Well, not as well as we could. When we kicked off, we had a good sort of comms volunteer, but we lost her when she went off to Bristol. Shamila and one of our other trustees called Denise, they work on the website, they post stuff on social media. We have a newsletter that goes out to 400 odd people quarterly. And actually we've got quite a high hit rate, because you can work out how many people have opened it and read it, So I think the word goes out quite well, but when people give awareness raising sessions and all that to statutory, non-statutory organisations, which we do, you always get a high proportion who say, "My goodness, I didn't know that. I hadn't realised." So there's a real effort there. That's why we're going to be putting in for a fund to get an outreach worker 1 day a week, just to work a bit more with Portsmouth North. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing Amanda this afternoon. So we do work to advocate and raise awareness, but probably we could do a lot more. It's not easy. That's why I'm talking to you today. It's for no other reason, to be honest.
I get it. I get it. And because the reason I actually brought that up was because I always find that the ones who are loudest sometimes aren't doing the best work. But the sanctuary are doing.
There's
great
a correlation there for sure.
Take.
I can mention the Red Cross because I know it directly. So they had a strap line refusing to ignore people in crisis, and you'd see it a few years ago. You'd see it all over the television. They put a campaign out, and it's a really good strap line. But I know for a fact that even they might not have directly refused to give people support. What they did during COVID was exactly that. They withdrew. Yet they're still pulling in millions, still paying their executives well over 50,000 a year. The chief executive, it's all publicly available. The chief executive is probably earning not far short of what the Prime Minister earns. And I don't know what the outcome is, but they shout loudly. So they They do very well. I imagine the Red Cross pulls in a lot of money from legacies, wills, and so on. Yeah, just a small amount of that would be nice.
Nice. I get it.
Yeah, so they shout very loudly, and at a government level, I'm sure they advocate pretty well. But that's just one part of what they do, advocacy.
Yeah.
Is it worth the money that goes in? I don't think so. I would expect far, far more. And it's not a criticism, it's just the way the model has been accepted by us. So I think we should be asking more from our national charities.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anything less than 85% going directly to clients is wrong.
That is.
Gosh, yeah.
Wow. And are there any procedures in place, or are there anything in place that can prevent that from happening? That's just
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Society needs to wake up.
Wow.
Start questioning. Politicians need to start questioning. It's the same. Come on, it's the same in all walks of life. Why on earth do we have such an overblown House of Lords? It's mad. I think there are certain things we all know are wrong, but it's going to take real leadership of the type we talked about to make the changes and reform this country.
Wow.
Get it into the 21st century in certain areas where we know there are problems.
Yeah, do you think that
We know there's a lot of there are many management problems in the National Health Service. We know that as well. Lots of companies are not being run responsibly. So I'm all for responsible economics, and I do believe in capitalism, but it's got to be responsible capitalism. Safeguarding is another big issue. Too many people that should know better are acting badly in all walks of life. We've seen it, we've heard it. The press is a nightmare. I mean, tabloid press has peddled all sorts of lies about migration. Nothing I can do about it other than counter it locally.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Calling migrants illegal. Everybody's talking about illegal migration. There's no such thing as illegal migration. It's only illegal because you called it that. That doesn't make it illegal. It's wrong. And if we've created a law, then the law's pants. It's wrong. You can't be an illegal asylum seeker. Once you prove that I'm not one, then fine. You can send me back home. But that doesn't make my journey, particularly if I'm genuine, illegal. Something like 60% of those on boats end up getting refugee status. Well, how can they be illegal?
Really? Wow.
Immigration Removal Centre opening up in Hasler at the end of the year in Gosport. And immigration reopening, it closed in, I think it was April 2015. The lie has been peddled that they're all sort of foreign national offenders. They're not. They're just failed asylum seekers who haven't yet proved that their case is worthy of getting refugee status. I bet you, because it'll be very interesting to see, a large number of those, they are guys, large number of those detainees will end up back in the community again. What a waste.
Yeah.
Waste of their life, a waste of our time and money.
Yeah.
Millions getting Hasler refurbished. Millions. Total waste of time and money.
Wow. There should be a committee.
A short-term holding centre at Hasler or Gatwick. That's all you need.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So that's partly why I do it, because it is interesting, and somebody's got to get on with it, pull their socks up and get it moving. But I work for the Royal Naval Association, so I'm not, I haven't got all my time to do all this, doing what I can.
So how much time do you give to this in comparison?
I've never worked it out. If my wife knew the truth, we'd have a huge row.
Yeah.
Far, far more hours and time. So I came into this area of work, I don't know, about 12 years ago now, nearly. 11 and a half years ago. So I've been involved in it all that time directly, but interested in it before that, obviously. If I had another life, I'd be doing other stuff as well. There's loads of other stuff I'd love to get involved in, but I have not got the time.
I get it.
But I want to do it. So I will be, at some point, I will be handing over and still involved, but not taking a lead, which means I can then direct my efforts at other stuff that I know need doing. I'm relatively happy with the state of affairs here in Portsmouth. I'm really pleased. I think we've got a good future. I'm quite optimistic.
That's good to be optimistic. Yeah. You could be the opposite.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay, so that's the plan. So what are we to expect then in the next few years of the sanctuary?
Well, I think that it will expand. I think that we will continue to be in a co-worker space like the host here. So, I want a real plug for St Luke's. They've got an inexpensive co-worker space with a great cafe. So people need to know that and use it. We'll stay here because it's good to collaborate. So we're not looking to have offices or all that, but it would be nice to know that we've got a room where we can deliver English. It would be nice to know that we've got HR, a little bit of HR to manage a couple of staff. Would be good to know that we've got some sustainable funding. If we could secure, let's just say, £400,000 unrestricted funding, that would set us up for the next 20 years. There are organisations like Refugees at Home who have done that. They've gone from where we are now to being a national organisation with that sort of money. We don't need quite that much money because we're going to stay local. But we want to be a leader for the local area. So we want to make sure that Gosport, Fareham, Havant, Porchester, Hayling Island are also covered under the umbrella. And we want to probably do something significant to help out detainees at Hasler when it reopens. So, not stratospheric, but we want to see us get to a sustainable place where we've got really good policies in place and enough money to guarantee that any vulnerable migrants in this city know where to go to get help. Welcomed, orientated, advocated. That's what we're going to continue to do.
Nice.
Until we're not needed.
Do you think that time will ever come?
Hope so. I hope so. But there's always going to be a movement of people around the world. I mean, what are there? Something like 97 million internally displaced refugees around the world.
Really?
That's internally displaced. And I'm rubbish with numbers, so I might be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it's about right. And then you've got so many other refugees all over the world, a very, very small proportion in the UK. But I don't see that changing. People are always going to be moving because, sadly, it's part of the human condition to fight.
Yeah.
And you've got other issues, with climate, lack of water, and so on. So there's always going to be a migration challenge, but we have to nail it and come up with a good, coherent way of dealing with it as a nation. So that's going to take a big conversation. Is this government up to it? I hope so. But they've got to start delivering themselves. Safer routes. There has to be a way of nailing those traffickers. The Prime Minister promised, well, we're going to hold him to task. We will be watching closely. We want to see the hotels closed down. We'd like to see certain other things happen as well. We'd love to see asylum seekers able to work more readily. Get them working. Paying back taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
No, I get it. If you say the hotels are shutting.
Yeah. That's part of government policy to save the money that's been spent on hotels. So they've got to clear the backlog, you see. Got to clear the backlog, and they will probably be looking at alternative ways of accommodating people.
Okay.
I won't go into the detail now, but there are one or two good ideas which we'd support. One of the reasons why we want to do more outreach. If you take an apartment block, they might turn that apartment block into properly managed asylum seeker apartment block, so it's not a hotel.
That's paying rent.
Yeah, so people are feeding themselves and looking after themselves. They're more independent, so the food they're eating isn't the same sort of aircraft type food that you would get. You can't eat like that for a year.
No.
Plug up the system. That's why we kicked off the Kitchen of Hope to give an alternative to that. But that will be, the funding for that won't continue forever. And that's probably right because it was a short-term solution to a problem. But so I think the hotel in Portsmouth will close down at some point. I hope so.
Yeah.
And those people are either given their status or an alternative place to live.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. And I guess, okay, to wrap up.
Yeah.
That's the direction of where it's going. That's where we currently are. Any final words and where to find you?
Well, we're always at St Luke's on a Tuesday to Thursday in Gresham Street, behind the Central Library. And on a Monday, we're at All Saints Church, where we have a drop-in every Monday from 10 until 1. Very busy. So that's where you can find us. And of course, Portsmouth City of Sanctuary's website.
Nice. Happy days.
Yeah, happy days.
All right.
It was good to...
Well, yeah, no, thank you.
Good to have a chat.
Thank you, Malcolm, for actually having this chat.
And you guys need to think about the output yourself from this process.
Yeah.
Get everybody together and let's support the city vision. That's the way I'd go, mate.
Yeah, that's the aim.
Yeah.
That is the aim. But yeah, time will tell.
Thanks, Alec.
That's the aim. All right, thank you, Malcolm. Thank you. Should there be a limit on the number of refugees they let in the UK?
No.
Cool. Why is that?
Because, like, there should be a lot of refugees, you know, always. You shouldn't put less.
Should there be a limit on the number of refugees that are let in the UK?
I don't think there should be a limit. I feel like if they're coming over here to seek asylum and all of that, get away from war and that, then yeah. But if they ain't willing to work and pay their way, then that's where it's got to be a bit of like, oh, okay then. Like, do you know what I mean? Like.
All right, that's it from us. Yeah. Should there be a limit on the number of refugees that are let in the UK?
I'm gonna be real with you, man. Like when it comes to that kind of stuff, like people are coming over here because they need a better life. You know what I mean? Like they need better resources. If I was in their shoes, I'd be the exact same person. But yeah, man, live and let live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is
That.
100%, yeah.
Why is that?
Why the are they letting them in when they can't look at their own? You understand me?
Yeah.
I'm very true, brother. See, I'd shoot the boats, yeah? 2 boats, shoot them. Let them drown. And they won't come again, will they?
Should there be a limit on the number of refugees that are let in the UK?
Well, there should be a limit on the number of anything. It depends on your ability to sustain and hold what you have. Your first priority should be to who belongs to you. And if you're not taking care of your own, then you cannot properly take care of anybody, because your own speaks to of your future generations.
Should there be a limit on the number of refugees that are let in the UK?
Yes.
Why?
Now you got, because there should be a limit on everything, surely. Too much of anything's too much, and not enough of anything's also not enough. So, if you put it that way, like, I don't think they should kick all refugees out of the country. I think that's wrong. But I don't think they should also be overpowering our country.
Should there be a limit on the number of refugees that are let in the UK?
Yes.
And why?
Because I feel like... Do I need to hold this, or do you want to hold it?
No, go for it.
All right. Everyone's laughing at me. I don't know, there just should be. I think there should be, after a certain amount, I think as people then become too opinionated, and then you have people like doing the riots and stuff, and then I feel like once they get to a number and everyone's happy with that number, I think that should be it.
Cool. So
Interesting, yeah.
that was a video. Thoughts?
I think it's really important to do that sort of little survey. I think the country's really confused. Just, where do you go to get correct information? Most people, the vast majority of people, are really well-meaning, good, welcoming people. I mean, we are human beings, aren't we, all together? I can't imagine many of us, if you go back a few generations, haven't got some migrant input in our genes. I just can't believe it. But I also think it's interesting that some people say there should be a limit, because you can't have unlimited anything. I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't believe that we should just do anything in an unlimited way. So there has to be some control and measure, but that control and measure has to be legal, and it has to be humanitarian. And we also have to look much longer and harder at our own internal systemic issues in this country. Because I do believe that, properly managed, we could have a very, very healthy multicultural society it's the only way to go.
I agree. Is there a limit on the number of refugees that are allowed in the UK?
No.
No.
So we have a net increase in the number of migrants that come in. You've got to look at the different categories of migrants. So we've got students, we've got dependents of students, we've got people coming over on work visas, got people visiting as tourists who happen to overstay. We've got, yes, of course, asylum seekers and refugees, but they're a minority compared to the overall migration statistics, which the Office of National Statistics pores over constantly. So, the country doesn't have enough emphasis on upskilling its own citizens to do all of the work and take on all the employment opportunities that the country demands, particularly a growing economy. So, we've got a number of internal issues, which is a pull factor on migrants, including students, coming to this country. Our university system would collapse without the income brought in by foreign students who bring with them a number of migration-related challenges. Probably 2 to 3% of students coming from abroad bring a number of addiction, homelessness, debt, and other related mental health and issues and so on. A small proportion, but they still have to be managed. So the universities should be managing those issues, not leaving that to wider society. So, it is a very complicated piece. We have the resources to do many of the things that we should be doing for ourselves in this country, but we're just not designed in that way. And there's a lot of work to be done to get our own house in order before we put the blame on migrants.
Fair enough. Any closing thoughts?
No, it's really good that we're having this conversation. The conversation needs to be had. It's not wrong to talk about migration in negative tones. It's not wrong to do that. It's not racist either. But at the same time, if you're going to have that point of view, you need to be aware of the facts. Do not claim that migrants should be shot or that boats should be sunk like that one guy did, unless you're very, very clear about your facts, because what you've done is borderline criminal. And I would want to be looking at that individual's own circumstances to see why he feels that negatively, who's been influencing him, and what has he been doing, what has he done to put right some of the ills in his own community. Doesn't look like that much, to be honest. So that is very annoying to hear that point of view from a Briton, because that's not British behaviour, and he should be ashamed of himself. And you can certainly publish that.
Good stuff. Well, thank you, Malcolm, again.
Okay.
And I look forward to seeing what's next.
Yeah. All right, mate. Take care. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, I get it.